Well, it's like another one of the kids coming home. So this is Preston's 46 Willys Jeep. Preston was a good friend of mine. I met him up in Chico. He's no longer with us, but I was around him basically the day he bought this Jeep. He bought this from a farm down in Princeton, or what started this Jeep, probably in like 1997. So this was one of WFO's first projects to build this up for Preston, with Preston, and then he had some other people working on it, Matt, our friend Brian Hartley. So this is the Jeep now, and his two young kids just got this thing back, so they're going to keep it as a memory of their father, and it hasn't driven in a long time. So we just put in a battery shut off. We checked all the fluids out on this thing. It runs perfect, and we're going to give it back to them. They're going to drive it around the property and the farm until they're old enough to drive. So take a look inside here. This is a 46 Willys. Like I said, this was one of the first Jeeps we worked on in 2003. It's got our roll cage. It's got overhead console with the CB, stereo, CB speaker overhead, dome light, rear speakers back here. Really hard to fit a back seat and full cage in a flat fender. So we did the A hoop, B hoop, and a halo in the rear to make space for the speakers and for headroom for the kids. This thing was a military tub, so it's got the compartments in the rear fenders. Factory, no factory rear tailgate. We went ahead and did a 3/16 full wrap, diamond plate steel around the corner, moved the rear end back as far as possible. Spare tires fixed, mounted on the back, one jerry can mount. This is kind of cool. This Jeep has a gas tank I built while I was going to college in Chico State in 1996. And when I built a new one, I sold Preston this tank. The rear axle is the offset Dana 44, and it has a Warren full floater kit, 538 gears with the Detroit. Spring over with factory Wrangler springs. Actually, this has the 1.5" reverse eye Rubicon Express springs. Take a look at this right here. So we went ahead and just had one-piece axle shafts made for the full floater rear to get rid of the locking hubs and make it a little more reliable. Some of the cool military stuff that's still showing on this is, look, the shock mounts, factory shock mounts with a cotter pin. Let's take a look underneath. I'll show you a few things here. You gotta crawl down on the asphalt. So this has our modular 2x2 cross member with the skid plate that comes off. Full belly protection underneath there. And then the rear end is a 1310 CV. So even though it has the offset Dana 18, we still put a CV on it so it spins smooth down the highway. Then you can see with the shackle reversal we sleeved the frame, did a shackle reversal in the sleeve through the frame with the YJ springs. And the front drive line is a 1310 to 1310, but you can see it's got a Travel Master long slip up there. And then even things like this, you could tell the roll cage completely tied down into the frame, kind of making the frame extra rigid at the same time too, because all these flat fenders had weak frames. But these diamond plate rock sliders were something I was doing back in college as well. My friend Tim Dempsey showed us how to do it. Broke the steel, welded them together. They work out killer on a flat fender. As all the flat fenders, the back seat has been moved back. So you can see we cut the tub out here, weld in this new piece so the seat can be mounted farther back to give you some foot room. Take a look in here. One of my favorite things. So we got this steering column at the Chico self-serve. I believe is like a 73 Fleetwood. So this column has telescopic and tilt. Ignition key on the steering wheel. So really cool to get in and out of this old flat fender and have that room. Take a look down there. Those are some swing pedals that we found when we were in college at the junkyard. The floor pan's done really nice. And I don't know if anybody understands all those sticks, but basically we got high-low in the Dana 18, we got overdrive, and then you got your regular T98 stick way up there so you can grab it. So it's always fun to grab a ton of gears in this thing. We were a little bit ahead of our time back there in 02, 03, so we built it's basically a narrow track Dana 44 front, and it's got 538 gears, ARB, it's got high steer on it, and power steering conversion, of course. So the power steering is just mounted right here on the end of the frame rail, and then the frame is sleeved with, I believe this was 2.5 by 3 for the tube front bumper. Always have to have the Warren 8274 on the flatty. Now, as you can see, military grille, military headlights. This thing has a 3A window frame, so you can fit in a little better. Here's a sign of the military grille and military headlights. So take a look right here. You got wing nuts, and this light will actually swing up, so the headlight is facing at the engine if you need to work on the engine when you're out in the field or overserved on the trail. Of course, this is not the factory military engine. So this is a even fire 231 Buick V6 with the factory intake manifold, factory Rochester carburetor, and it has HEI ignition on this one. And up here you can see more of the swing pedals, so hydraulic clutch, and then it's got a Wheelwood master here for the front and rear brakes, so those work out pretty good. Over on this side, we got York onboard air compressor, which is always killer to have a nice onboard air system. And then we hooked the ARB up on a separate system just so that the two wouldn't contaminate each other. Sometimes the York gets a little oil in the line. There was no room under the hood for the battery, so right here on the firewall are the positive and negative studs, and the battery is actually located underneath the center console. So if you need to jump it, jumper cables, whatever, you go on here, start it up. Showing that kind of shows the vintage of this Jeep is these are the old school MTRs, which we thought these were new school back then, but old school MTRs. It's got Rancho 9000 white body shocks with the adjustable clicker on it, which is kind of cool. Just a lot of really cool features in this Jeep. It really does have a lot of room sitting in it. The seats are comfortable. It's got amps underneath here, killer stereo. Preston always wanted some good sound, so if you look in the dash, he even fit 5-inch speakers in the dash, and then you got 6.5s up there, and then amplifiers all underneath the seat. And every Jeep needs this. Please pull over to the side of the road. You always got to have a PA hooked up to your CB with the speaker underneath, and even if you're not going to use the CB, install it anyway, because every responsible Jeep owner needs to catcall the ladies. You're looking good, baby. Let's take this thing out for a drive and see how she drives, you know. Bring me back into the old school a little bit. All right, well, this thing runs killer, and it's always been fun to drive, so I'm gonna kind of give you a walkthrough on all these sticks right here. So first off, T98 4-speed, which reverse is over and up, which, you know, is common on T98s, some T18s, but it throws people for a loop. But we got our OEM billet shift-ons we built for this thing, you know, 15 years ago. So I always like to start in second, have the overdrive and low range. Now, if you want, you can shift up to high in the overdrive, and that's another gear. Or you just leave it in low and then shift, whoa, watch that, shift into third. And you know, third's a little high, you don't want to go all the way to fourth. Boom, you pop that overdrive, now we're in third high. And then let's say you do want to get up into fourth, bring it down to fourth, go to low, there's fourth low, and then you got one more, you can go fourth high in overdrive. So now we're lugging it, we got to get back down, but it's super fun to play with all these shift knobs down here. And even if you take a look at the Dana 18 shift knobs, so Dana 18s have a low and high knob and a 2 and 4 knob. So you can shift it into 2 low at any time, and then 4 just goes into 4-wheel drive. So super cool setup on these old flat fenders. So anyway, driving this thing, super comfortable, smooth, tons of room for a big guy like me with the way the seats are set up. You got the overhead console, your stereo right at your fingertips, CB at your fingertips, breaker on 1.9, you got the rubber ducky here. And then we always put a CB speaker here so it's close to your ear, so when you're going down the highway you can hear it. Got a dome light in this one. Like I was saying, the old tilt and telescopic, you can bring the steering wheel down, up, wherever you want it, down in your lap, up. So all different types of drivers. As you can see, center console's right in the right place, and unfortunately these drink holders right here are empty. And this is the kind of vintage vehicle that you always want a nice beverage there, like a Big Gulp or maybe something else. But all in all, really cool, fun Jeep to have back at the shop. I'm really excited to see this thing back on the road, and I know this will be a great legacy to remind everybody of our friend Preston and for his kids to have. So hope you enjoyed the Jeep. Well, I kind of forgot how low geared this thing is, but with 538s, granny low, she should crawl pretty good. So let's see. There's low range, granny, idles up a little high. So that's it. This is what you're doing on the trail right here. Foot out, chilling. I like to put the window down. This top section unzips so you can fold the window down, still have the bikini top. So kind of the rules we always had is if you're out wheeling, the window's down. That opens it all up real nice. So basically here we are, granny low, cruising the trail. See ya.